this shows, this shows that racism still exists. How can you say that Lomachenko is better than Terence Crawford? Not at all. Not in a million years. Not at all.
Are they unsure?
As you all heard on the audio, Floyd Mayweather pointed out to Shannon Sharpe the double standards that exist in the sport of boxing, in which they will have a fighter like Vasyl Lomachenko, who is 14-1, over a guy like Terence Crawford, who is 36-0. Now, what makes this worse is the fact that Floyd Mayweather is not informed on the fact that ESPN, the network that both of these fighters fight on, they actually erased Vasyl Lomachenko lost on more than one occasion. This is the same network that try to push the narrative of the fact that being undefeated is not a big deal in the sport of boxing, because you could easily have an off night. So in other words, for the longest, ESPN and a lot of decaf wizards, aka experts that work for ESPN, tried to discredit Floyd. Meanwhile, they erasing Vasyl Lomachenko lost in order to sell him as an undefeated fighter to the casual fans. So for the people that want to claim maybe it was just an honest mistake by ESPN, just to make it clear, that was not a mistake. That was clearly done on purpose in order to fool the casual fans that don't know any better. We know this was done on purpose because ESPN, the network, or even a worker that works for ESPN, such as Max Kellerman, when he's on First Take, if he ever makes a mistake by informing the fans false information, the next day, you best believe he will acknowledge his mistake, pointing out the false information he stated and stating the facts instead. However, for this scenario, instead of ESPN acknowledging that they made a mistake on air, they completely ignored it, even with all of the backlash they received for doing so. And what made it worse is their next move, because truth be told, that was their best move. What they did the next day tells the whole story. ESPN brought Terence Crawford to interview on First Take. They brought two of the biggest decaf wizards, in which Teddy was telling Terence Crawford, you have the best instinct of all time. Ironically enough, though, when they showed the pound-for-pound list during the Terence Crawford interview, they had Terence Crawford listed as number 2 on the pound-for-pound list. Meanwhile, they had Vasyl Lomachenko as pound-for-pound number 1, listed as undefeated. However, this time around, he's not undefeated all of the way. They took the L and replaced it as a draw. Just to show all of the fans, this was not an honest mistake. This was done on purpose in order to fit our agenda. The fact that ESPN never acknowledged their mistake proves it was done on purpose. They could care less about how you guys feel, because that hope insurance that Vasyl Lomachenko has is better than Geico. It erases losses, it erases your track record in case you cheat, and whatever it takes to make a sheep look like a goat. This hope insurance performs wonders. Now mind you, both Terence Crawford and Vasyl Lomachenko, they fight for ESPN. So why are they so biased toward Vasyl Lomachenko? Well, the answer is very simple. Vasyl Lomachenko has the complexion for the connection. He's on the hope list. On the other hand, Terence Crawford happened to be from the coincidental list, and you best believe it's not a coincidence. So let's dissect Vasyl Lomachenko and see why ESPN love him so much. So early on in his career, obviously, Vasyl Lomachenko suffered a loss in a devastating fashion to Salido, where he got taken to the Mexican university. A whole university he knew nothing about. Now, mind you, the version of Salido that beat Vasyl Lomachenko was a washed version of himself. A year back before that, Mikey Garcia beat him from pillow to post. So keep that in the back of your mind. Now, when Vasyl Lomachenko was doing his post-fight interview after the Salido loss, he acknowledged that he got taken to school. Max Kellerman was trying to give him an excuse, but credit to Vasyl Lomachenko. He took his L like a man. He did not bite on the excuse, and he stated that Salido is the better fighter. Now, at the time, that's when the excuses started flooding in. For example, people started claiming that Vasyl Lomachenko was too green. Vasyl Lomachenko was not ready, even though it was Vasyl Lomachenko who requested it and demanded it himself. And luckily enough, he got exactly what he asked for. The only problem is he could not deliver. He could not produce. Therefore, after that failed attempt, Bob Arum gave Vasyl Lomachenko another VIP pass straight to a world title for Salido vacant strap, in which Vasyl Lomachenko ended up fighting Gary Russell. But according to the WBO, if you are coming off a loss, you cannot fight for the WBO strap right away. But like I stated before, that Hope Insurance covered everything. So he's allowed to break all type of rules. Now, all of a sudden, when he beat Gary Russell, he's no longer green, which that don't make any sense to me, because he was never green from the jump. Vasyl Lomachenko coming into the pros, he was already in his prime because he had 400 amateur fights. He was 25 to 26 years old. He had 5 World Series fights. In other words, pro style type of fights that won't count on your pro record. So by the time Vasyl Lomachenko fought Salido, truth be told, he was 6-0, and that was his 7th fight. So my point is, a lot of people were making excuses. So Salido seized the moment, realizing that this is a big fight coming up. Therefore, after Vasyl Lomachenko racked up a lot of wins, a year later, surprisingly, Vasyl Lomachenko shocked the world by avoiding a Salido rematch, claiming he passed Salido. According to Vasyl Lomachenko, the Salido rematch was a step back. However, truth be told, that was a bunch of duck bullcrap. For one, Salido pretty much beat Martinez, the same guy Vasyl Lomachenko beat in order to win the world title in his second weight class. Martinez was coming off a win against Salido, but truth be told, it was a robbery where they had multiple fights back and forth. So Salido was still more than credible at the time. Second of all, Vasyl Lomachenko only had 1 loss in the amateurs. However, it hurt him so much where he ended up fighting that same guy 4 to 5 times in order to avenge his loss. Now, mind you, he had 400 fights in the amateurs. Meanwhile, in the pros, off the gate, Vasyl Lomachenko received a capital L. However, he don't want to avenge his loss, his only loss in the pros. That don't make any sense now, does it? It was clear as day he did not like Salido's style personally, because it was that Mexican style, not that technical style. It was just very raw and awkward, which Vasyl Lomachenko was clearly uncomfortable with. So instead of giving Salido the amount of money he was requesting, since he beat him the first time, he took the opportunity to avoid him. So, moving on. A Manny Pacquiao opportunity presented itself, in which Vasyl Lomachenko was claiming that he wished and he want to be as great as a Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. Then when Pacquiao heard that, I believe he was 39 years old, Manny Pacquiao was very interested in fighting Vasyl Lomachenko, so he offered Vasyl Lomachenko to fight at 135, in which, shockingly, Vasyl Lomachenko ended up turning down the fight. So when Vasyl Lomachenko got asked the $1 million question, why did you turn down a fight with your dream fighter? He simply responded by stating, well, he's too old. I don't want to make my legacy off a fighter that's too old. Which that was just a bunch of bull crap, because ironically enough, that same year, Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao beat Broner and the undefeated Keith Thurman, who was a world champion that was 10 years younger than him, who fight at 147 pounds. Now, regardless of how you guys feel about Keith Thurman, one thing for sure, if Lomachenko moves up to 147 to fight a Keith Thurman, Keith will be the favorite right away. So I bring that point up just to point out the fact that Vasyl Lomachenko understood the risk. He knew if he could beat a Manny Pacquiao, he's automatically a superstar. However, he also knew if he loses to a 40 years old Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, his career is pretty much over. So he understood the risk that came with the reward. Well, at least he knew if he loses to Pacquiao, he won't be the next pound for pound. So during this time, Bob Arum kept pressing the issue of wanting to see Manny Pacquiao versus Vasyl Lomachenko. But even Bob Arum was actually shocked by the fact that Vasyl Lomachenko wanted no part of Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao at 135 pounds, which was also shocking to the world. Now, during this time, Vasyl Lomachenko was always claiming that Terence Crawford is pound for pound number one. He was always praising Terence Crawford as pound for pound number one. So keep that in the back of your mind, because I'm going to get back to that. Now, Vasyl Lomachenko also had his incident with the young Devin Haney, in which he avoided his mandatory by requesting a French fries belt. During the time, he won a vacant strap. Now, if you win a vacant strap, according to the rules, you have to defend your title against two mandatories, because you did not defeat a champion for it. Now, mind you, Vasyl Lomachenko was a two-time world champion, and some way, somehow, he still fought for a vacant strap. Then, when they told him you have to fight your mandatory, which is Devin Haney, that's when Vasyl Lomachenko purchased a new strap called the French fries belt in order to avoid Devin Haney. Now, the French fries belt is a witness protection belt in which Canelo and Vasyl Lomachenko requested and demanded the WBC president in order to make up a new strap that's not a title, that's not a belt, in order to avoid a mandatory from the coincidental list. So, by this time, Vasyl Lomachenko avoided a fighter that beat him, which is Salido. He also avoided a fighter that he claimed he want to be as great as, which is Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. He also avoided a green fighter, according to Vasyl Lomachenko's own words, even though Vasyl Lomachenko claims his dream fight is Floyd Mayweather. However, ironically enough, he does not want to fight his prodigy, Devin Haney. So that's clearly 3 ultimate duck moves by Vasyl Lomachenko. But to get back to the pound-for-pound status, the majority of Vasyl Lomachenko's pro career, he was praising Terence Crawford as pound-for-pound number 1 for multiple reasons. Just like Gennady Golovkin didn't want no part of Andre Ward, Vasyl Lomachenko wanted no part of Terence Crawford. So he did not want that dream fight to come to fruition. So he played nice guy with Terence. Matter of fact, Terence at one point even called out Vasyl Lomachenko. Terence Crawford, when he was still at 140, he called out Vasyl Lomachenko and every fighter in the game. Terence Crawford made it clear as day. If you guys believe Vasyl Lomachenko is pound for pound number 1, then we could fight at 137 pounds. I'm willing to do a catch weight. It's only 2 pounds south of where Vasyl Lomachenko is about to campaign. So what's the big deal? However, Vasyl Lomachenko had nothing to say, and his team even came out and killed the notion of fighting a Terence Crawford. Furthermore, the most shocking thing that Vasyl Lomachenko did was as soon as Terence Crawford moved up to 147 pounds, that's when Vasyl Lomachenko started claiming he's pound for pound number 1. He started ripping it over Terence Crawford. Now, mind you, when Terence Crawford was still campaigning at 140, Lomachenko was praising Crawford as pound for pound number 1. As soon as Terence Crawford is 2 weight division south of Vasyl Lomachenko, that's when Vasyl Lomachenko got confidence and cojones to say that he's pound for pound number 1, which I find that very intriguing. So I point that out just to show the double standards that exist, because what Vasyl Lomachenko is trying to do today, which is become undisputed, Terence Crawford already did it at 140. Plus, truth be told, Vasyl Lomachenko wouldn't be undisputed even if he beat a Lopez, because the real WBC champion is Devin A. Boogeyman Haney. That gave Vasyl Lomachenko a new nickname, Lomachenko. Matter of fact, he gave him a new name. It's officially Lomachenko. Devin Haney also stated, "I will never let a white boy beat me," in which Vasyl Lomachenko happened to be the greatest white hope of all time. And truth be told, he is a good fighter. But the fact that he's even avoiding Devin Haney after Devin Haney stated that shows he have no pride or any confidence in himself. Against the green fighter, according to Vasyl Lomachenko himself, is mind-boggling to me. So I say all of that just to point out the double standards, because Terence Crawford is undefeated. Terence Crawford is a 3-weight division champion. He already been undisputed, something that Vasyl Lomachenko is trying to accomplish today and purchasing belts in order to do so. So while ESPN is erasing Lomachenko lost, they have a fighter that is not just undefeated. He also dominated every single opponent that stepped inside that square circle with him. He's not just 14-1, he's 36-0. He's not just a boxer, he's a boxer puncher. I mean, I will never forget the day when Floyd Mayweather retired. At the time, Andre Ward knocked out supposedly pound for pound number 2 Kovalev in a spectacular fashion. Terence Crawford also became undisputed. Then Teddy Atlas had the pleasure to interview both right after Terence Crawford became undisputed. And he had the audacity to tell both Andre Ward and Terence Crawford that they not competing with themselves. They are competing with Vasyl Lomachenko, who was, I believe, 8-1 at the time. However, Teddy Atlas want to justify placing Vasyl Lomachenko as pound for pound number 1 over both Andre Ward and Terence Crawford when they both undefeated. When Andre Ward is a gold medalist that haven't lost a fight since 12 years old, beat the best in the pros, coming off a knockout victory against a top 2 pound for pound fighter, according to old media themselves. And on the other hand, Terence Crawford just became undisputed in his second weight class as an undefeated fighter. However, that's just another perfect example of double standards that exist in the sport of boxing. So like Floyd Mayweather stated before, being 50-0 is not that simple. He did not just beat his opponent. He beat the referee, the corrupted judges, the commission, and pretty much all odds, because all odds was against him. And he prevailed. So with that being stated, I'm going to leave you guys with Floyd Mayweather favorite quote of mine, which is, "I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than be loved for telling a lie." So we're going to talk and dive in deeper on this topic and the fact that Floyd Mayweather was questioning Terence Crawford decision making, sticking to Top Rank and Bob Arum after seeing what they are doing to him and how they are praising Vasyl Lomachenko. With that being stated, subscribe below. If you're trying to get smarter by the minute, if you're trying to get dumber by the second, don't listen to these decaps. The dumb, casual ass fans / old media that don't know shit about boxing. Word to Roger Mayweather, may he rest in peace, inshallah. Shout out to my broski, my Akhi Dante, for being the entrepreneur of new media that I'm a part of. And if you're a casual fan and you want to be a hardcore boxing fan, all you have to do is subscribe and click on the notification bell to get notified every time I post or go live on Split Decision. It's a boxing debate / talk show mixed, master engineered, produced by yours truly, Akhi, the past, present, and future undisputed pound for pound. When it comes to debating, I got these decaf shook, they scared to look every time Akhi's on TV because it's always bad news. Since the decaf script tonight is the truth, and that's what I bring every single time. So with that being stated, quit treating me like the Iron Mike of debate and the most feared, and grow some cojones and call in. Also, make sure you guys check out the Floyd Mayweather interview in the description box below that Floyd did with Shannon Sharp. It was a great interview. Join me tomorrow on Boxing Hood with my own broski, and to be continued on the next episode of Akhi TV. Peace, and we out here.